Well, welcome to Sleep In Cinema with Gareth and Craig. Today we are so excited because we are joined by incredible new director Lucy Kerr, whose first feature-length film, Family Portrait, will be playing at the Sidewalk Film Festival coming up this weekend. And I just got to say, first and foremost, all I've got stuck in my head now is a visualization of a green squirrel. So thanks for that. I'll leave that open so
That'll make sense.
people it'll make
Yeah.
sense after you see it, but seriously, we really love this film. I really connected with it. I think a lot of people will, even though it kind of is existing in this kind of open-ended space. But I saw a lot of, I think, some influences or things that are similar, things like Krishna, the invitation, this kind of existential world. But the first question I have for you is kind of the origin of this for you. It's set pre-COVID, this family getting together for a family portrait, but it feels about like it's all about COVID in many ways, as well as other things. So if you could maybe just walk us through sort of the origins of this film.
Yeah, for sure. It sort of started in 2018 when I was in school, and I was kind of taking cameras around with me a lot to film things for assignments or to try things out. So I took a camera home to Texas for Thanksgiving, and my family was all taking a family Christmas card. And every year, my mom takes it super seriously, and she has a theme every year. And we went to the house for Thanksgiving where the film is set. So that's my grandparents' house. Um, in that year, for the Christmas card, we were all wearing these crazy Christmas costumes with like Santa Claus on them or snowmen or Christmas trees. And the whole thing was covered in this pattern. And then we were kind of out on that field trying to get together to take the picture, and I set my camera up just to kind of observe that. And it took forever for everyone to finally get together, and everyone kind of had their own little worlds, their own trajectories during that. It almost looked like a choreographed scene at the beginning of a film or something like that. So that's sort of how it started, was that visual. And then I brought it back to school and I made a little short or like documentary of my family trying to take these pictures. And yeah, and then I had a studio visit with this filmmaker I love, Lucretia Martel. She the director of La Cienega. Yeah, it was kind of like an incredible opportunity to meet with her, and I showed her this footage, and we talked about how the family Christmas card represents a lack of conflict, so if something were to disrupt the card, that could be the narrative starting point for the film. And then in 2020, COVID started, when I was in my last semester of school, and so that was pretty weird. And all of a sudden I was spending all this time at home, couldn't go on campus and stuff. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll write. So I started writing the script with that in mind, what she had said a couple years before, and thinking about um, how the family picture is almost like a microcosm of like the country trying to make everything normal again without like processing all the grief of all the loss of people's lives. And so yeah, the kind of inciting incident being a family member passing away from a strange virus but never mentioning it being COVID, that all just kind of fell into place. Because I also didn't want to make something that was kind of another typical kind of COVID film. Like I wanted to make something way more ambiguous, but kind of you feel the same sense of dread that you felt
Well,
during
that sense of dread is phenomenal. I think
the.
the atmosphere that you build, and a big part of that is the sound design. And you worked with these two sound designers, Nikolai Antonov and Andrew Seiderberg. How did you get connected with them, and what was your working with them. What was that like? Because I imagine obviously you were very involved with that, but that is such a huge part of this film and the experience for us. I just am curious about that.
Yeah, I love sound. Like something I appreciated in school. I had a couple teachers that really put a lot of importance on sound. And yeah, I love sound the way it can like affect us viscerally in our bodies. And it doesn't have to be music, it can be other types of sounds, the way they kind of immediately access our emotions, or our kind of like gut feelings. Um, so I knew I wanted to take it very seriously. And we edited it for like 10 months and worked on the sound for like 8 of those months. So it was like a concurrent process. Um, and yeah, it kind of went organically with the 2 sound designers. Andrew was there on set, so he was recording a lot of the sounds from that space, not only during, shooting, but also on his own time, he would go, like, record different mechanical sounds that that house makes, like, especially the air conditioning. There's these 2 big kind of like machinery air conditioning. So that's the sound that you hear at the beginning. Um, and that's kind of that humming or that drone is coming from the air conditioning rather than like just a drone added to it. Yeah, which I think helped make it feel more like sort of from that space. Um, and then yeah, and then so Andrew was working on it for a while, for months, and then we handed it to Nikolai, and Andrew kind of put in kind of like broad strokes, the organ music, the train sounds, the air conditioning, and then with Nikolai, we sort of finessed some of the design, and mixed it, in a way that, was very, uh, rigorous. Like, we spent 10 days or something in the mixing studio in Berlin, um, and he worked beyond that as well in that same mixing studio. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think, what I was gonna say, but also, like, not only, like, the oh, yeah, and then the intro, that was a really big challenge when we went to mix the sound in Berlin, it still wasn't there yet, so Nikolai spent months, figuring out the intro. We started with voices, and then the drone took over the voices, then we had a lot of music, and that wasn't working, and then we had silence, and then we started to kind of figure it out, that it starts with the drone and then the voices come through. Um, yeah, that took a long time. So yeah, it was just I think the process was very interwoven with the editing process so as to not just kind of slap music on at the end. Um, and also the last thing, was like off-screen dialogue and overlapping dialogue was something I knew I wanted to use when writing the script as well, 'cause, when something's off screen, it creates such an interesting, experience for the viewer because they start to imagine something off screen immediately. So it starts to involve their imagination in an interesting way. And I think off screen dialogue isn't something that's used enough, especially not in TV and things like that. It's all just right flat there in front of you.
Well, extremely effective. I mean, it's really cool to hear about that process because it all came together, I think, beautifully. And that opening scene is one of the best I've seen this year for sure. I mean,
Thank you.
it's so wonderful in the cinematography with it. Greg?
Mhm.
No, it's thanks for that's a good segue because that one tracking shot in the beginning, and you do have this like cast of characters that are just kind of in their own worlds, as you described it earlier. Can you tell me about the cast and like how you put that together and how you um, worked with them to explain to them what your goal was for the film and how they took part in that? Was there any improvisation? Because it seemed very natural, but you did say also that you wrote the script. So how much of it was improv? How much of it was on the page?
And by the way, Chris Scouse, I loved him in Give Me Liberty, so it was so
Yeah.
awesome to see him in this. That was really cool.
Yeah, I loved him in Give Me Liberty as well. He was amazing, and yeah, I love that film. And just his own background. He's Russian American, Ukrainian American, and yeah, when I saw that film and heard about his background and um, kind of how he's also in that film having to deal with all this chaos around him and it all falling on him, I thought it was such an interesting parallel. Um, yeah, I had a lot of fun casting. I did it myself. I did it in a very unconventional way, I think, for a feature of that size. I did kind of like open calls online, because it was, yeah, I wanted to like cast a wide net and like see, who might be out there that's not, repped by an agent or kind of has all that, uh, all of the, yes, people that are maybe, non-trained actors or
I mean, it
they
seemed like a real family. Like that's what was interesting to me is that they did seem to interact well. So I was curious how much rehearsal was there, how much time they spent together, to get that kind of comfortableness.
Yeah, I think it was also the location, like, it's such a beautiful location with the river there, so, like, we had a couple days of rehearsal, but just 2, and, immediately, I think when you step into that location, you just kinda, like, feel more kind of this sense of breathing easier, kind of in nature and this sense of kind of like a respite from the rest of the world. So, and then after rehearsals, everyone was hot. So we went to the river and just like swam in the river and just like floated in the river and drinking beer and stuff. So everyone got to know each other pretty quickly. And it was kind of like a summer camp situation where a lot of people were sharing rooms and living on that property. So that kind of allowed people to bond, I think, more, especially the kids. The kids just kinda, I think they acted more naturally because they just felt like they were, playing and at camp or something. But yeah, the casting was I found the main actor, I'd seen her in a film and really loved her performance, so I reached out to her agent, and same with Chris, but otherwise, I had found them through open calls or people in Texas that knew people, yeah, like I had found Robert Solis, the father, and then he connected me to the 2 sons-in-law, Will and Jack, Christian Huey and Les Weiler. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of just mix of Texas actors and non-Texas actors, trained actors, non-trained actors.
Well, it's really interesting to hear that you're very knowledgeable about this location with it being in the family. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you is like, where did you find this tree where these kids could crawl into it?
Yeah.
The folk horror fan in me was like, okay, so that's not going to lead to any good. So it's going to come out of this tree. But that was a fascinating shot that you repeated. I just love that. Maybe you could talk. I mean, was that something you're like, oh, this tree's got to go into it? It's so important. Obviously, it's a great metaphor in so many ways. But tell us about that tree.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's such a beautiful image. I agree. Um, yeah, like you were asking before about, so a lot of the scenes that you see of people by themselves or maybe with two people together, like talking about the webcam or something, or the girls talking about the fish, those were added when we were there on set and they were improvised. Um, so like a lot of the script is just those bigger dialogue scenes of Katie going kind of from room to room talking to people. But then when we were there on set, we were like, well, we have this incredible location and, maybe there maybe it doesn't need to feel so linear of her going from room to room. Maybe there can be these inserts that we were talking about. That's what we called them. So a few of us, me, my husband Carlos, who edited the film, but also wrote the film with me, and Rob, who also did some additional writing and helped with kind of directing the actors or talking to the actors or kind of organizing that. The three of us sort of made this list of, and Lydia, the cinematographer, made this list of possible scenes to add, to improvise. And we would kind of observe how people would spend their free time all around the property, swimming or off in the hammock or behind the house, smoking cigarettes, things like that. And we'd write them down and be like, okay, well, maybe this character can be doing this or this character can be doing that. And then we were thinking, okay, for the kids, like what might we want to try? And Carlos, was like, saw that tree and he was like, we have to do something with that tree. And yeah, I think we filmed that on maybe the last day or the second to last day. And it works just really well with the edit. And yeah, so it wasn't planned ahead of time.
Nice happy accident right there.
One other one I'm just curious is the two shots of the two birds on the rock in the middle of the river, and then we have the two shots of the swimmers. And obviously, my mind's making these associations. I mean, did one come before the other, or was that again just something you caught? Like, oh, look at these two birds. Let's do something with that.
Yeah, it was just a happy accident. And again, one of the things we wanted to shoot was like that we added to that list was Katie and her mom swimming together. So we were filming them swimming and they were swimming and then those birds landed on the rock. So then we turned the camera up and just filmed the birds and they were actually swimming toward the birds, but we don't see that in the frame. Because yeah, it was just a beautiful image, those two birds there, and we're like, okay, we should get that. It's such a blessed moment. And they're vultures. Yeah,
I
so it
thought of
was
Walkabout when I saw it. It's kind of, I don't know if that, I'm sure that wasn't intentional, but it reminded me of that amazing film.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's
And same thing with the kid going into the tree with Picnic from Hanging Rock. So obviously, I think, yeah, like where did they go? We don't know.
Exactly, it has a lot of I actually didn't see Picnic at Hanging Rock until after I made Family Portrait, but I was like, "Oh, wow, this has a lot of similarities," and yeah, I think all of those films share this, like, that nature has this mystical power or has, unknown forces to it that we can never really know, um, and, that are bigger than us, so I think and so in Picnic at Hanging Rock, it's like what this kind of force of nature envelops them, and it's almost similar in Family Portrait. And yeah, the birds, another thing in the edit, we put the women on the rock, and then she goes on her journey into the woods and she swims underwater, and then those two women kind of transform into birds. So it's kind of like similar to those films, like that, we're also all just like animals, trying to make meaning with ourselves by taking these pictures and creating these narratives for ourselves, but really we're just kind of like we're just animals that will return back to nature.
Well, and I make those comparisons, but I think your film is unique, and I absolutely love it on its own. I bring these in just because I love those films as well.
Yeah, thank
No,
you.
it's great. In this post-COVID world, I was talking to someone the other day, like we were trying to put a timeline together, and it's so hard to remember what was before and what was after, and everything is this dreamlike haze. And you
Yeah.
did such an amazing job of expressing that with this family. So it really stuck with me, and I really appreciated. It was really great. So I can't wait for everyone else to see it at the festival. Are you coming to the festival? I'm not.
I'm so sad that I'm not gonna be
Oh,
able
it's
to
too bad.
make it because it seems like such a cool festival and like so many great films there and just such a great community. Sadly, I'm working on my next film right now, so uh,
Oh,
I'm
good
in
reason. That's a good reason.
yeah. Yeah, I'm doing some
Well,
location scouting.
I've
So,
no. Oh, that's good. Well, I just from the audience previews that we've seen, everyone's very excited to see it. So I think it's going to be a
oh,
great screening.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear how it goes from the people at the festival. And yeah, I made a little video for the audience to
Oh,
watch. And
nice. Well, we can't wait to see that as well. So
yeah,
thank you so much for talking to us, Gareth. I'll let
thank
you.
you.
Well, it's been an honor. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you, and thank you for creating this amazing film. And we look forward to your future work.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, really nice to meet y'all. And I hope enjoy the festival.